My grandfather had a dream. Father, my uncle had a dream. And it's in your heart, that dream. You want to
Yeah.
continue the dream. I think that's what encouraged me to go back.
How did it feel for you to be a 6-year-old in boarding school?
Look, it makes you tough.
You never disagreed on how to run the business.
We disagreed on opinion.
Yes.
Then we agreed on the way forward.
Okay.
And I'll tell you how you do that. You set your ego aside. And when I get to the top of the mountain with skins, you feel insignificant. And that feeling is very relieving because also your problems become insignificant with you.
This episode is brought to you by EFG Hermes One, your one app for investing in more than 35 stock markets worldwide. Welcome again to What I Did Next from ANT Media. I'm Malak Fuad, your host. I sit down with a new guest each month and we take a deep dive into their lives' most pivotal moments. My guest today is Ayman Tamr, chairman of the Tamra Group, a third-generation business with a 100-year history in Saudi Arabia. Ayman's grandfather moved to Jeddah and opened the first pharmacy in the Arab Peninsula in 1922. That small pharmacy today is one of the largest healthcare companies in our region. Ayman tells me about his own journey within the context of the family business, from going to boarding school at the tender age of 6 to returning to Saudi Arabia in 1985. It was clear from my conversation with Ayman that family is everything, and family weaves through the company, is its heart and soul, as well as being intrinsic to who Ayman himself is. As someone who grew up in the pre-internet age, Ayman's interests are of the offline variety. His retirement plan echoes this, but you must listen to the whole episode to get to that nugget. You went to boarding school, I think, outside of Saudi, and then you went on to university. So tell me about that sort of period. Relive your youth.
One of the first pivots in life is actually to have the gift of and the ability to study in several different academic institutions throughout my life, starting in Saudi at the time where education wasn't the same level it is today, and then moving to boarding school in Lebanon at the age of 6. And
very young,
Arabic.
Ayman. That's so young. How did it feel for you to be a 6-year-old in boarding school?
Look, it makes you tough.
Yeah.
But definitely, it's what it made me.
Yeah, and you were okay with that experience because I went to boarding school,
independent, very independent.
but I was 12, and that's considered quite young, برضو, but 6.
Look, I didn't put my kids in a boarding school at the age of 6 for sure. But at the time, you either had the opportunity to study abroad or you didn't.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really far. Lebanon was 2.5, 3 hours from Jeddah, 3.5 hours, if I remember. And my parents were there every 2, 3 weeks. But it was tough, for sure, being in a boarding school. And that's what gave me that independence. And I guess you need to be independent when you want to lead anything in life.
Absolutely. And I think when you
starts
look
with
back on
having an independent thought. Definitely boarding school built my character in a positive way. Of course, it has some memories of sad memories when you miss your parents and so on. But that's the ticket you pay for what you get.
I also think that boarding school is something that works for some children and not for others. It worked for me. It wouldn't have worked for, my boys, for example. I have 2 boys.
It didn't work as well for my sister or for my brother.
Yeah. And what did you do after Beirut?
Following boarding school and after Beirut, when war started, so we had to leave, went back to Saudi and then went to Switzerland. It continued my O-level, A-level, and then to the US, graduated from the School of Bachelor of Science in Marketing from the University of Southern California. That was 1986.
You obviously had a scientific, that was where your education went. You were more scientific rather than humanities.
Actually, I started architecture for half a year.
Okay.
And then I switched.
And in your mind, was the family business always where you would end up, or was it
the
something
reason
you were?
why I switched. Back in 1982, before I graduated, and I went back for 1 month to work with my dad over summer. And I decided I want to go back. I was always curious to know, we were fortunate. We had a source of income, living very nicely in the States, and I wanted to know where that source of income was coming from.
Yeah. But it's interesting
And
that
I wanted to take that responsibility.
it's interesting because for someone so young to decide to just, go straight into that and
I'll tell you how the decision came.
yeah,
Part of your curriculum in communication classes in business is you prepare a CV and go out there and get a job offer.
yeah,
So I had to do the same, and I got a few offers, speaking 3 languages and coming with a diploma from the USC. I got offered. And I thought about building a career at one time. But then I said to myself, even if I would be successful, I would always regret. I never went back to see what opportunity I had back home. My grandfather had a dream. Father, my uncle had a dream. And it's in your heart, that dream. You want to
yeah.
continue the dream. I think that's what encouraged me to go back.
And I wonder, being in a family where the business is so consuming, were your family gatherings always talking about the business? Even as children, you and your cousins, were you around this ethos of the business a lot as you were growing up?
My father never talked business at home, uh, but we were a very close family. So my father, my uncle, the cousins were very close. We were like one family. We shared a beach house. We shared a lot of things. We shared a family boat. We shared. My father and uncle had a joint account all their life, so they were like one family.
I love that. I think that's such a charming side.
Yeah, and that raised us that our cousins now, all of us are very close. So my daughters and my son are very close to my cousins, not their cousins. And I like that. But we never really talked business. But I think the values of the company and the values and culture of the family has been very strong about caring, about having certain values, which I will talk about later. I think this has been installed in us at an early age. Yeah.
I mean, I think fundamentally that's probably the underlying reason for the success. Because if you didn't care so much, you would have been able to, shut down at 8 p.m. and say, "Halas, I'm out tonight," and
That's true.
that really matters. I mean, I think you have to family businesses. It's all about that. You have to live and breathe it. I think. So when you did go back and you did decide, okay, I'm going to now put all my eggs in the family basket, so to speak. What was that like? Did you find yourself wanting to understand every element of the business? Did you work in different departments?
At that time, my father and my uncle were coming of age a bit, and he told me, I don't have time to put you in a job. I want you to listen, and it's for you to go then and go into details. So I put myself a program, and I went and I put myself in departments with the permission of my father and uncle, and went through the entire business cycle and what we do. So I followed from planning, ordering, to then receiving the goods, and then storing them, delivering them, marketing them, selling them, uh, uh, merchandising them,
So you've
service.
done the 360 of the business. You
Yes,
know the 360 of the
yes,
business.
on an
Yeah,
accelerated kind of. So I didn't stay 2 years in a port. I stayed 2 months, but enough to
yeah, yeah.
understand the cycle.
Sure,
And
sure.
I got very involved in the business. So I decided not to go back. I didn't have the heart to go and spend money again on my father's expense to go do a master's. And I
Mm.
felt that there was a gap between my father and uncle. And at that time, the company had a very good reputation name, but wasn't necessarily the best organized. So when Farouk and Mamoun were not there, basically we had a correspondence department, and Makbul, bless his soul, who was the head of the correspondence department, was uh, basically de facto the general manager in their absence. And so I asked my father, I said, we need to bring a company and reorganize. We were about 200 employees. So we brought in Touche Deloitte.
Yeah.
And I lived with them 2 years, went to all the branches and got to know everybody's job and what their job should be.
Yeah.
and how we did the segregation of duties and and that's when it was recommended to have a general manager with 3 AGMs for every department. And we moved our manager in Riyadh, who was the best manager. My father, Subhi, God bless his soul, Subhi Al-Ghanma, Dr. Subhi, is a pharmacist. And he came to Jeddah. The country wasn't growing in the 80s. We had the war of Iran and Iraq. And so pharmaceuticals grow by population. It was growing at a 2-3%, allowing us to focus internally on business planning. And when a business rallies in an economy, the first who feel it are contractors. They get the business and their business shoots up. We don't feel it. Then once they build new hospitals and more beds and referrals, then our business grows.
You're in the second phase. You're in that second phase. Yeah.
Right. We're not cyclical.
Right.
We're very steady. And when the business drops for contractors, we don't. We continue by population.
I like that. So, it took your coming and maybe your cousin to look at the business through new eyes, right? So your dad and your uncle had taken it to a certain point, and then you're the next generation taking it, maybe modernizing certain things that were not functioning, or having a fresh eye on things as well.
Absolutely.
I think that's what does it.
I think I'm very proud to say when we joined, we were 200 employees. Today we are almost 5,000.
Yeah.
We were doing around $50 million. Today we're doing over $2.5 billion. So my cousins and I did a good job. We made a lot of mistakes.
A good job.
We did a good job.
Well, yeah.
And I think the biggest credit I give myself, really, and my cousins, is that we had a great name and reputation. But unfortunately, the number of Saudis working in the organization was less than 1%. And we were not the exception. Everyone was the case. And unfortunately, Saudis also only wanted to work primarily in the government sector, didn't have the trust in the private sector, and the private sector didn't have the patience to invest in their development. I think I would blame both sides for the situation. I wouldn't necessarily blame one side. So I worked very hard of course, obviously, when you don't have this focus, then you don't have, about employee satisfaction index. I even realized I wouldn't want to live in this organization or work in an organization with this business atmosphere. And I think what I give myself credit is changing the atmosphere in the organization where you can attract, develop, and retain local talent. And you do that by building a fair playing field. And what I mean, first of all, you create an ethics committee. And talented people they don't necessarily want to win always, but they don't like injustice. They want to be recognized for their credit.
Of course. And they want to feel part of the organization and valued. Of course.
And there is this saying, you join a company and then you leave a boss. So, bosses that took credit about their talent instead of recognizing them was the norm in our group. So underneath the 20 people who were the right hand of my father and uncle, there was no successors. So my father was retiring with a group of 20 management retiring, and I saw the gap. And I realized that I cannot retain talent unless I change this. Developed the balanced scorecard, I brought it in, which was developed by GE, where now my management, their reward is not on financials and sales. Anyway, managers don't sell, the salesmen sell. Why should they be rewarded on the same thing? And I focused more on them being rewarded in building the organization and developing the people. And so typically in our organization today, you could be my boss, you recognize me, I become a colleague equal to you because I've been promoted. You're very proud of me. You have an opportunity for a promotion in head office due to family reasons you regret. They offer it to me. I become your boss. And I still call you boss. And you're very proud that you discovered me. That's the culture we have.
That's the ethos.
Culture of meritocracy.
Yes, yes.
Where people are developed according to their merit and not because
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I used to go to the Eastern Province and see where two accountants, one Jordanian, one Sudanese. The Jordanian had 4 times the salary. The logic of the branch manager was that this one has kids, this one is Sudanese, doesn't need this. So
Yeah.
you pay by merit, you don't pay
Yeah,
by nationality.
absolutely. And you know that this is an attitude that still pervades the Middle
Yeah,
East, and it's
yeah.
quite shocking
It's
that this is
unhealthy.
still. Yeah, it's very unhealthy. When we come back, Ayman tells me how they've continued the strong family bond inside as well as outside the business. Plus, Ayman takes on our fun lightning round. That's after the break. This episode is brought to you by EFG Hermes One, your one app for investment across more than 35 stock markets worldwide. With EFG Hermes One, you can buy and sell orders in real time for immediate execution across multiple global markets. You can keep track of your favorite stocks by creating and customizing multiple watch lists and make informed investment decisions with their advanced technical analysis tools to study market trends and investor behavior. So supercharge your financial journey and download the EFG Hermes One app on the Apple App Store and on Google Play and start investing today. Welcome back to What I Did Next, and this is my conversation with Ayman Tamr. Before the break, Ayman was telling me about how the Tamr Group reorganized in the 1990s.
When we did the reorganization and Subhi came back to Jeddah, I took a more active role under him. And I started working in every department and learning the business thoroughly and managing suppliers. So next to my dad and then my uncle and my general manager, I was in the age of late 20s negotiating contracts.
That's amazing. It's amazing.
Already.
Yeah.
But I wasn't really in charge. I didn't take anybody's place in the organization. It's when Subhi, our general manager, announced that, Ayman is ready. I'm 60, Ma'moon. I'm going to retire soon. Just that year, he announced, he went back home and he got a heart attack. He got a clot.
Oh.
And he was in a coma
no.
for 6 months. And I had to take over the business. I was very emotionally disturbed. I visited him in Jordan.
Of course,
he was really family to me. His wife, Arayib, his kids, Firas, and all were family to me.
Yes.
And that forced me to take charge. And my cousins by then were back in the organization after their masters, and they said, Ayman, you lead and we will support you. I actually upgraded the 3 AGMs to general managers. I told them to grow. I'm not taking his place. All of you are taking his place. You're all becoming general managers. And I put a presidency over with my 2 cousins being vice presidents. And I told them, we're going to split together the responsibility and we're going to be able to replace each other always. And so we had a communication between us, the 3 of us, which was impressive. At any time, everybody knew what was going on.
Yeah.
And often people say, I saw you in Riyadh last week. I said, no, that was my cousin. So we managed to share the responsibility.
And how do you manage disagreements?
We never disagreed. We never had to vote.
You went with the majority, even though it wasn't explicitly said.
At one time it happened where I didn't want to do that certain business decision, but they all told me, you're getting too involved. I said, okay, I'll pull back. And I should have done that decision anyway.
Oh, really? That's the one you regret?
But it's okay. No, I don't regret.
That would have been the one you wanted to do.
I don't regret because that's life, You have to sometimes accept things being done. So my cousins and I were really, I told my cousins, look, Faisal, you're our finance guru. You handle the finance and our new factories. Mohammed, we're going to invest a lot in supply chain and warehousing. Please, you manage it. We spent billions in expansion.
Yes.
And we replaced each other. So one was not there. The other one had full authority to sign. Until today, we have single powers of attorney against each other. A level of trust that I'm proud of.
Yeah, you should be proud of that.
I can sell their shares, sell their house, close their credit cards if I'm angry at them and I'm
Yeah. But I don't
think they can do the same to me.
But I don't think it beats your father and uncle sharing a bank account. That is impressive.
Exactly.
That is
Same
impressive.
principle.
Yeah.
Till
Yeah.
today,
Yeah.
we have joint investments we do together.
Yes.
Everybody
Yes.
has his personal, but we have joint
Sure.
investments.
Sure. Sure.
And that remained as a backup to the company. And again,
Yeah.
that was one of the reasons why the company remains solid. Often when you distribute profits to members, some are active and some are not. And you cannot go back and tell some of the members, hey, we distribute, but we need to put money back in the company. They
Yeah.
say, sorry,
Yeah.
I built a house, I spend it.
I took it. I used it. Yeah.
So what we did was we kept some of the retained earnings. We
Yeah.
distributed them, but put them in a joint account where we can only dispense them if we both agree to. And
Mhm.
that funds were back up to the company. And we
Yeah.
had to use those funds. And we
Yeah.
could not have done that had we not had this joint investment account where the management family members could make quick decision, save the company without having to discuss with 9 different shareholders.
You mentioned you have 2
Three.
children? 3.
I have 2 daughters and a son.
And any of them thinking of the family business down the line?
I think all of them are interested and engaged in the family business. I build a family assembly where we have meeting every year. I think now it's our 4th year. We started 1 year before COVID, and so we've been.
Yeah.
And we explain the business in general, business where it's going. We have some numbers, but it's not mostly financial. It's all about the company's values, strategic outlook, where we're heading. And we engage the next gen also on what they're interested, because now they're going into, some of them are starting to work and they're in their 20s. So we're engaging them and we're doing some case studies. How is it opening a new business? And we'll have some of my management discuss new startups that we're doing.
Yeah.
And then we're also having some family members discussing startups. So there is a lot of harmony, understanding, appreciating, unifying the entire family. The next gen, this is the 4th generation, who I'm very proud of, because I tell you, when I presented to them, their level of engagement, I have done many presentations. They didn't even have pre-readings, and they grasped that stuff so like a sponge. I wanted to cover a point that how fortunate and lucky we were, the 3rd generation, to have my uncle, late Uncle Farouk, and my father, Mahmoud, who were so understanding and open to allow us join the business. And when Farouk passed away, my father pulled himself out of the business, gave up his shares, told them, consider me not here, and did him over to the next gen. The only thing he requested is, please keep my sisters, take care of them, which means he had faith that we're going to do a better job. If he didn't, he would tell you, cash out my sisters too. You can do what the hell you want to do with the remaining shares. But he said, no, keep those shares. I'd like you to keep them.
Yeah.
Which means deep down inside,
He had faith.
he had faith we're going to do a good job. And at that time, the business was doing only 400 million.
And Ayman, did he pull away your father because he couldn't face running the business without his brother?
He was already not running the business. Well, we were already active, but he was very affected. He was so close to
very
his
affected
brother,
by it.
he just
Yeah.
didn't want to stay there anymore.
Yes.
And
Too many
I
memories.
think it was the most important thing he did until we changed the legal structure to more good governance, because individuals were owning the company. And since then, my grandmother passed away, my aunt passed away. Had he not come out and taken out my mother, his mother, and his wife's out, we would have been interrupted many times, God forbid, with these passing aways.
Yes.
And that disturbs the business because it blocks accounts. Now, even if I pass away, I have an LLC that owns the shares in the holding, and the LLC will be blocked, but not the holding.
Yeah.
And so the ultimate beneficiary owners today are LLCs and not individuals.
Well, you have to separate the family from the business.
Fortunately for what he did, allowed us a good 20 years of no interruption of family issues due to inheritance and deaths, and so God forbid, and let us focus on the business.
No, I mean, I think each generation brought its own wisdom to the table as well. you were all products of your time, and it shows in how you ran the business. I think that's very clear.
And the third generation did a lot us in
Yes,
diversifying. We
yes,
had the courage to not only grow in the field we're in, but go into completely new fields. We're going to services, going into
yeah,
e-commerce, going
yeah.
double downing on industry, vaccine
Hmm.
production. And I'm happy to say that almost all startups we have now are making good in the black and not in the red, and have a very important strategic outlook and opportunity.
So I want to end with something that I've been doing recently with my guests. It's a very silly, light-hearted segment called the quick fire round.
Let's go.
Get ready. So, are you a big picture person or a detail-oriented person?
Oh, both. Uh, Big picture.
Big picture.
When I started, I was a more detailed person. Um, Now,
Yeah,
as a chairman, I have to put hands out and nose in. So, so I'm trying to
absolutely.
stay. I guess with time, I was more detailed because the devil was in the details, and now I'm more big
Yes.
picture, perhaps.
I think that's a natural progression of a career like yours, where you begin in learning every department. You have to understand everything that's happening. And then as you become more, more of a manager and then eventually running the
But
whole
till
thing,
today,
you have to,
Malak, I have certain things,
uh,
details that I know numbers that freaks out
yes.
my own management. How do you know?
Oh,
Because
really?
I have numbers that I see regularly that I have now are imprinted in my hard drive and not soft drive.
They're positive numbers or numbers you don't like.
No, I have selective memory. Only things 40 years
Yeah,
I
yeah,
have
yeah,
been placing those
yeah,
numbers
yeah,
on top of
yeah,
each other.
yeah. Do you like the desert, the sea, or the mountains?
First choice C.
Sea,
First choice
the sea,
C.
the ocean.
I'm a fish.
Yeah, okay, okay.
And then I'd go
You're
for
a
the
fish.
desert and the mountain. But I love all three
Yeah,
because they give me space and freedom. You know, when you are
yeah,
in a big
yeah,
space, I
yeah.
climb actually in my hobbies. I'm a ski climber. So, and when I get to the top of the
Okay,
mountain with skins, you feel insignificant. And that feeling is very
yeah.
relieving because also your problems become insignificant with you.
That's right. That's
And
right.
so
Of
it's a
course.
great feeling to be out in the sea or out in the desert or up in the mountain. It's a feeling of freedom and insignificance.
What are your other hobbies? What do you like to do to
Swimming,
unwind?
yoga. I'm a yogi since 16 years now. Swimming,
Okay.
skiing, climbing.
Hmm.
Yeah, those are my hobbies. Those are my favorite hobbies. Horseback riding.
Horseback. So you're very sporty. I mean, you like to try out everything. You're very, yeah. Okay, okay. If you had to choose another profession other than what you're doing, What would you have
I
chosen?
already have. I'm going to retire a farmer. Don't
What
laugh.
are
I'm serious.
what are you farming? What are you farming?
I am going to farm everything, but basically medicinal herbs.
Oh,
In Puglia,
really?
I bought a
In
farm in
Puglia.
Puglia. Yeah,
Oh, how amazing.
that's
It's
my
known for its
retirement.
olives,
That's my
right?
new hobby, my new career
Wow.
after 60.
So homeopathy type thing or
It's going to be a B2B, so certificates, great soil in Puglia. And
mm,
so we'll grow great organic medicinal herbs.
amazing.
And I will have a distillery to make essences to
So
it.
it's not a hobby, or you're going into a second career, Ayman, actually.
Yeah, yeah. But it's a hobby.
But a fun career.
Yes.
What's your favorite activity?
Uh, Sports, outdoor sports,
Sports.
swimming,
Yeah.
skiing, being outdoor with God.
But do you prefer to do sports on your own or do you like competitive sports?
I like sports with a companion
With a
mostly.
companion, yeah.
It's very
Yeah.
difficult. I mean, I like football and all that, so it was
Yeah.
very hard to
Yeah.
get 11 people together.
That's true.
But yeah, I like sport. I like skiing
And
with a
as you
companion,
age, you want to
scuba
avoid
diving
football.
with a companion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm happy
If
to have, if I have a handful of friends, I consider myself lucky.
I think as we age as well, our friendships become, we choose the people we want to be with more selectively. At least I do. and the ones I want to be
agree.
with. Yeah, yeah. What's your least favorite activity?
Look, going in the internet.
Really?
I hate the box.
You don't like
You
researching
want to
things online or
punish me?
anything like that?
No. You want to punish me? Put me online.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you're not a technology
Right
person.
now,
You'd
I'm not
rather
so
be,
punished because you're interesting.
you're very nice. But
But
you'd
I
rather be
hate the
out
box.
doing something. Yeah.
Between baby boomers,
Yes,
Generation X. Huh?
absolutely.
So I'm the
Absolutely.
outdoor.
Absolutely.
I want to
Yeah.
live outdoor.
So my next statement that you have to end the sentence is, I have a hard time. Finish the sentence.
I have a hard time pleasing everybody else.
That's a hard one because you
I
want the
wish
best for
I had more
everyone.
time.
Yeah. And my last final question, which is a positive one, I want you to finish the sentence as well. I get joy from.
Oof, I get joy from seeing other people happy and being with happy people and just getting out there under the sun, just feel joyous about being alive.
Wonderful. That's so lovely, Ayman. Thank you so much. I really, really enjoyed that conversation.
Me too.
Thank you for joining me today. I'm Malak Fuad, and the show is produced by Chirag Desai. You can find video versions of our episodes on YouTube and on Spotify. Please also reach out to us and leave us a comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or on Instagram.